Hi everyone, welcome into a brand new episode of Behind the Paw. My name is Matt Ambrose and we're pleased to be joined by men's soccer this week and head coach Keith Byrnes. Happy you're with us. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And let's look a little bit at your past and how you kind of got here to Frostburg. But I want to start at your origin in the game. When you look back to when you started in the game of soccer, how did you get that start? What really made you get involved in this game?
It's probably parents putting me into youth soccer, 6 years old or whatever, getting out there to meet friends, and your dad's your coach, and I think it just kind of went from there, just year in and year out. It just kind of built as we kind of went through the youth system, and then kind of got to the travel teams back then before it was these premier teams on academies, and I'm just local neighborhood kids kind of basically in the same town playing together until we were, 18 years old.
You were a 4-year member of the men's soccer team at Frostburg State in New York, a 3-time NCAA tournament appearance during your tenure there. What memories do you have during your time playing for that team?
Well, obviously there's certain games that stand out that we talk about all the time when we get back together. But I think it's just the friendships, the memories, the competition. How our team was. We thought we were good, but we probably weren't as skilled as the kids we've been coaching these days. But we worked extremely hard, which is something we shed onto these guys now. But I think it's just about the kids I was with and the guys that I'm still in touch with, 20-something years later.
Now, you graduate from there in 1995. You start to get into coaching. Did you know while you were playing that you wanted to get into coaching, or when did that idea come along for you that coaching was the route you wanted to take?
I thought my coach had the coolest job. He was just always in his office hanging out, talking sports, playing racquetball, basketball with other people during lunchtime. But that wasn't my vision, I guess. I mean, I was a hotel restaurant management major. I was working in restaurants for a couple of years, but then I realized restaurants kind of cut into your weekends and your nights, and that's when a lot of sports happens. So I wasn't loving it. So I went back to Frostburg to, be an assistant for like $1,000, and I worked in a pizza shop, and just kind of got my feet wet that way.
You took a head coaching job up at the time called Plymouth State College, now Plymouth State University in New Hampshire, only about an hour from me, by the way, up in New Hampshire. But 2 years there, 29 wins in your 2 seasons at Plymouth State. What did you learn from your time there? And that was your last stop before you came to Frostburg. But what helped you in your 2 years at Plymouth State to get you ready to make the leap to Frostburg?
Well, I think the coach left me a good corral of players to build around.
They did pretty well before you
Yeah, so I mean, I walked into a good situation. It wasn't building a program from the ground up. But then just being able to coach talented players who wanted to win and had expectations was very helpful, because they kind of already had some of their goals set before I got there. And then it was a unique team with, it's almost like these Division II models now that we see. I mean, we had about 9 international players. So there's a lot of different personalities and styles of play kind of all coming together. So I kind of learned from them as well. We had Sweden, South Africa, England, just kids from all over. So it was pretty interesting.
You come to Frostburg before the 2002 season, so you've been here a while now. But before you took the job here at Frostburg State, what did you know about the school beforehand that kind of influenced your decision to come here?
Nothing really. Was a full-time coaching position. Plymouth was only part-time, so I worked in the high school as a special education aide, and I just wanted to coach because, I mean, doing that was sort of rewarding, but you're drained by 2 o'clock, and by the time you go to practice, sometimes you don't have all the energy left that you want for your team. So I wanted to focus on coaching soccer, so this was that opportunity. I thought I was moving to Maryland, thought I was moving south, didn't realize exactly where I was going, and found out it's the same climate as the Northeast, and I actually love it, so it all worked out.
When you came here, you took over for the coach at the time was Jay Hegeman, who is the all-time program leader in wins. Now you're not too far behind him, second place all-time in wins, but he had a long career. He's a Frostburg State Hall of Famer. He played here, he coached here from 1986 to 2001 before you took over. What conversations did the two of you have during that transition to get you ready to coach this program?
Not a lot, really. Probably as a young coach, you don't know if you're stepping on someone's toes or what's because he's still working here but not coaching here. I look back now and I'm like, oh man, I probably should have talked to him more and found out more information. But we were friendly. We played basketball together, noontime hoops, and I coached as kids at camp and in soccer. And but we never had any real deep conversations about the program. I kind of left that as his tenure, and then I think just as the new first-time full-time head coach, I didn't know kind of what I should be doing, and I don't think I realized what a resource that could have been. Looking back now, I think, oh man, definitely should have been in touch with Jay more. But you live and you learn.
You're now going into season number 19 here at Frostburg State. When you look back, and I know it's a lot to look back at, but when you look back at your time at Frostburg and what you've helped build, and also overseeing last year a jump from Division III up to Division II, what memories come to mind first for you when you think back at these 19 years?
Again, I think it's the people you've met along the way, whether it's how the staff has had turnover and the guys that have been here for a while that I'm close with, and then the players, the coaches. For a while, my first 5 years, I had one coach, and it's kind of funny. He was a full-time assistant, and then we kind of reverted back to GAs and interns. So the turnover was a little bit more, and every 2 years you're bringing in someone. But now with the new intern positions, hopefully you can get people to stick around for 4 if they do a GA and an intern. So it's building some stability. And the players, I think I kind of told them the other day, it's like the wins and the losses kind of, they'll mean something, especially in the moment, and that'll give you those games to look back on. But it's really the relationships you build out of there. And, the memories I have now are going to guys' weddings and the birth of their children. And, all that stuff's pretty cool, as they get older and they look back on their experiences that I helped kind of create for them. So
yeah, so it's interesting. It's more, you develop those off-the-field relationships as you go on. It's not really just, a lot of it, of course, is on the field, getting results and achieving things on the field, but also, like you just said, building those relationships off the field is so important over time. I want to look back at a couple of things during your tenure. One that jumps off is October 17th, 2007. Your team set the program record for goals in a single game with 16 against Mount Aloysius. What do you remember from that day? 13 years ago, nearly 13 years ago to the day at this time.
Yelling at them to try to stop shooting. No. It was a weird game because we didn't have a big bench that day. We had a lot of injuries, so when we did sub in, we were still subbing in pretty good players. But we weren't able to really just kind of get everybody out there. There was probably 6 guys out or something, as if I recall. And I do know that I had no idea what the record was, but my assistant had looked it up and had said something to the guys. And then there's always that old adage of, you show more respect by actually playing the game through than, trying to play 2-touch or not shooting and almost embarrassing them. So, we played it out and we tried to be professional with it, I hope. But yeah, they were not that strong that year. We were playing pretty well, and yeah, we got going early, and then as we did sub, it was basically pretty key players that were getting subbed in, so it just kind of kept going.
And from an offensive outburst to really the opposite, 2014, your team's goalkeeper, Hassan Mustafa, set the program record in goals allowed average for the season at just 0.48. And looking at your team that year, your team lost 6 times that year, but each of the losses were just 1-0 losses that year. What do you remember about Hassan and what he brought to the table for your team?
He brought that desire to push himself because he was really eager at that time to see how good he could be. Could he be a professional soccer player? He definitely had some dreams and aspirations. I remember the team I felt like we defended every game like our lives depended on it, which is, what we did because we didn't score goals. I think our leading scorer, I was looking it up, had 5, and our second leading scorer was our center back with 3 probably on set pieces. And that's happened to us a couple times where we've kind of hung our hat on being a good defensive team and just do enough offensively to win games. But that's why you have those 1-goal losses when we just couldn't find a way those couple of games to get in there. But although we still ended up winning 10 games. So. Yeah.
No, still a successful season. And looking at last year, of course, I mentioned before the jump from D3 to D2. You guys went 6-11-1 last season in your first year at Division II. You had some close losses as well, so that record could have been a lot different looking back. But when you look at where this team can go from here, of course, fall sports move back to the spring for now, but when you look at what this team can accomplish, where can this team go, and how can this team build off of what they built last season?
Oh, we should be a playoff team, no question. I mean, you ask us before the season, would we be okay with that record and where we finished? We'd probably say yeah, because there's a lot of unknowns. Once we started playing the games, I mean, every one of those players will be upset they didn't get into the playoffs because we were there halfway through the season. We were talking about it, and then we didn't come through in some key games right towards the end of the season that counted, and it knocked us from 4th to 6th, and that's where we finished. And but the expectation, especially what we did with 1 year, okay, and when we get 2 or 3 years of recruiting, we should easily be a top 4 team and competing with Charleston. I mean, it's great having them in the conference because it gives us that barometer of exactly where we got to go and where we're at, and to play them twice and always get a chance at them. I mean, I look forward to that. It's like, it's actually more appealing than not facing them because it really gives the kids something to shoot for.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time here today to join us here on Behind the Paw. Really love hearing your backstory and where you think your team can go this year, and I wish you the best of luck this season.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Paw. Come back next week where Logan Walsh talks to the volleyball program. Until then, go Bobcats.